Hello, my wonderful little collections of bones. It's me, Glass Lotus is, your friendly and mildly eerie digital artist, writer, and cat lover. How are you doing this evening? I hope you've had a pleasant week. My partner and I made some saffron and vanilla ice cream, and it was really good. It was vibrantly orange, but tasty nonetheless. Now on to more Right Hand of Death lore. Today we'll continue on talking about the next god in the pantheon. This is the second of the three gods who works closely with Amanita, the god of earth. Our god today is the god of knowledge. You all seem to enjoy the more story-like versions of these, so I have tried to expand upon this one a little bit. I hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's begin. Saga is the god of knowledge and stories. Before she was a god, she was a scribe in the Eternal Archive, diligently recording the rise and fall of universes she was assigned. The Eternal Archive was a gigantic shifting library created by Altiora. To quickly recap, Altiora is often referred to as the god of gods, but is a being which can create universes and weave the fabric of reality. As a weaver, Altiora created a massive network of universes, tied back to the primary core universe. This core universe is where things like the Divine Council and the Eternal Archive exist and operate. The Eternal Archive was impossibly expansive and housed records of every universe which had ever existed within Altiora's system, as well as a copy of any media, information, or thoughts ever produced within those universes. Everything was documented. All data was compiled, collected, and stored. Nothing was left out. Saga was one of the scribes originally created to tend to this massive archive. As universes are created and tied to the core, scribes can be innately connected to a particular universe, and their histories can be written through the scribe as a kind of conduit. Saga passed most of her days writing line upon line of the histories of the universes to which she was connected. Time did not pass equally between the core and the exterior universes, and Saga did not age. She had all eternity to write the passages of histories, and it was all she really did. She would write, and then go home and rest, and then return and continue. One day, she sat writing and detailing the fall of yet another universe. The people were starving. The gods had become unbalanced, and the power dynamic was unlikely to recover. She had seen it plenty of times. The universe was in its death throes, and unless carefully managed, it was soon to fall and be consumed. All universes would be in time. As she toiled, a distant crash echoed throughout the halls of the library. Screams followed, and other scribes ran past her, abandoning their desks. The bookshelves, which seemed to tower up into a hazy ether far above, toppled like dominoes. The shock wave from the sound of one shelf hitting the next reverberated and shook the polished tile floors. Some scribes ran, others froze. Saga's heart rattled in her chest as the thunderous footsteps of a being far larger and far more powerful than herself approached. It stuck its mighty claw around the edge of a toppled shelf. A face, shaped somewhat like that of a long-muzzled dog, peeked out, and its nose sucked in the smell of old books and ancient dust. A glowing, toxic green tongue licked its lips, which curled back to reveal horrible, scraggly teeth. Its equally green eyes moved into Saga's view, hundreds of them. They didn't blink nor move in unison. Some stared blankly or lazily glanced around, while others more intently focused on the movement in the room, watching the scribes as they ran. Saga was familiar with the uneasy feeling this creature stirred in her, the feeling often referred to by other scribes and spirits as the weaver's snare. Much like her creator, this being was a weaver, and possessed the ability to wind and unwind the fabric of reality, and had the desire to consume said fabric. It was not uncommon for other weavers to invade the outer universes when their divine protections grew weak, but for a weaver to invade the core was unusual. The weaver began to consume the documents the scribes spent so long creating, smashing the bookshelves and turning them into writhing piles of dark thread. The other scribes fled in horror. Saga, however, stayed to fight and prevent her work and stories from being consumed. She had little skill in combat, and only the foggiest idea of how to defeat a weaver in practice. She knew in theory, but it was much different than she'd imagined. Before she could get far with her plan, however, the weaver took note of her, and with a swift claw grabbed her and reeled her in. It began to unwind our little hero, and she was half gone by the time Altiora swooped in. Altiora, being a much more powerful creature, in turn unwound and consumed the other weaver. In the ruins of the archive, Altiora almost did not notice the half-destroyed scribe. Scooping up the tattered remains of her creation, Altiora spun the rest of Saga's body back into existence, and sat with her for a while as she recovered. The god of gods praised Saga for her bravery, and offered to grant one wish. In addition to the wish, Saga was allowed to leave her job at the archive and live her life as she chose within the core. Scribes were meant to be rather simplistic in design and purpose. They didn't need a personality nor opinions. Altiora would spin them up with little care for how they actually turned out. She put little effort into their hearts and minds, and how they looked depended on how she felt that moment. All she specifically wove was their ability to channel universes. It was completely unintentional that Saga happened to be brave, intelligent, caring, and proud of her work. While it was useful to keep a being around who had the nerve to fight a weaver, it was also dangerous for a being like that to know too much about the rise and fall of universes. While Altiora voiced none of this to Saga, these were some of her thoughts as she freed the little archivist. Saga went home after work that day and pondered what to do. She had yet to use her wish, and she would consider her request carefully. She had spent eons writing about worlds she would never see, skies and seas of all colors, mountains and valleys full of creatures of all shapes and sizes, and groups of people from all walks of life. She could never visit the places she'd written about. All of them had met their intended ends. But perhaps she could create her own. Perhaps she could create one that was perfect enough to never end. There was a game, she had realized, a set of rules to be followed. With that, Saga wished to become a god, and she became a god of knowledge. In our current universe, Saga helped to populate a small continent with a telepathic race of people, referred to as sages. The first sages were given a small amount of knowledge magic, even before the War of the Gods. These telepaths could initially pass memories and thoughts by touching their foreheads together. Some of the stronger members could even communicate this way from a distance, or look into the dreams of those who slept near them. Over time and through the generations, these abilities grew much stronger, and when Saga fell during the War of the Gods, almost all of her energy fell upon her people. The sages became increasingly strong telepaths and illusionists, and were renowned for these abilities. Saga gave the world curiosity and writing. The spirits who served her constantly provide curious people with puzzles, challenges, and opportunities to grow and create. Temples built to the god of knowledge were some of the largest collections of books in the world, and were revered as sacred houses of information. In this drawing in particular, I didn't have a plan right out of the gate. I had never drawn Saga before, and I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted her to look like. I had just drawn Neve, the god of frost, before I drew Saga, and I was clearly on a fairy kick at the time. I also wanted to do something a little different with the eyes, so I gave her glowing, glassy eyes with no pupils. I also knew that I wanted to show her using her knowledge magic, so here she's essentially looking at the stats of a person in the world. Why I threw in a little rooster though, I'm not entirely sure. It's just kind of cute. I often go with gold and green themes, and I feel like the colors here just vibe so well together. The emerald wings just look so pretty in general, and I really like drawing fairy and butterfly wings. I also wanted to practice drawing hairstyles in the 4A through 4C range, as I honestly don't draw them often, but enjoy the styling potential they have. In general, I am terrible at clothing design, and I remember really not being sure of what I wanted to do with her clothes here. Anytime a character has wings, I'm like, do I make this realistic, or do I pretend there's just slits in the back of the clothes and call it a day? I kind of went with the latter here, to be honest. As for the frilly pants, I have no clue what's going on there. I really couldn't figure out what I wanted for her clothes. I'll have to fix that in my next drawing of her. Overall though, this is our lovely Saga, the god of knowledge. What do you think of her? Thank you for listening to my ramblings for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in learning more about this story, the world, and the characters within it, please like and subscribe. Good night.